64. When pronouns that end with self or selves reflect, keyword there, the action of the verb to the subject, we know they are called what kind of pronouns? Reflexive pronouns. And when pronouns that end with self or selves are used after a noun or pronoun to intensify it, they are called what? Intensive pronouns, right? Intensive being the key word there. All of the self words are one word, written like themselves, myself, as opposed to myself, themselves. True or false? That is true. Always write it as one word. And do not use a what pronoun in place of a simple pronoun like I or he or we. Don't use a reflexive pronoun in place of the simple pronoun. And demonstrative pronouns or adjectives are used to point things out. They all start with a T, and there's 4 of them. Do you remember what they are? I said them a lot. They were this, that, these, those. This, that, these, those. This, that, these, those. This, that, these, those. It's really fun to say. This, that, these, those. And then the pronouns that show possession, keyword there, without the use of apostrophes, would be possessive pronouns. So personal pronouns show by their form whether they mean the person or person speaking, being spoken to, or being spoken about. So the person speaking refers to herself as I and to her group as we. So we say that those pronouns are in the circles I highlight, the first person perspective. So of you, I, he, and we, what are the 2 pronouns that are in the first person? I, because you refer to yourself as I, and when you're in a big group, we. Pronoun is in the second person, circles to highlight. That is the one that the person speaking uses to address the person or persons spoken to. And there's only ever one pronoun in the second person. Of she, you, I, and they, which one is it? It is you. So you are my best friend. You are my 3 best friends. Does the second person pronoun you have any different forms for singular or plural? No. You always just stays as you. So, circles to highlight, a person is in the third person. A pronoun in the third person indicates the person or persons being spoken about. So the 3 that would be in the third person of he, I, she, they, you, or we, persons being spoken about would be he and she, and when it's a big group, they. So the terms first person, second person, third person apply to plural pronouns as well as singular noun. Don't let the term person, meaning more than one, confuse you. Singular or plural, it's all first, second, or third person. Think of person almost as like perspective kind of a thing. So I and we are both pronouns in the first person. He, she, and they are all pronouns in the what person? The third person. And I or we in the first person speak to you in the second person about him, her, or them in the third person. Circle star highlight that. That's just like a nice little reminder to see it all in one spot. So they would be which person? Third. Told us, which person? First, right, because you're included. About you would be second person. Always second person for you. You, like I just said, second person, told her, third person, to invite me, first person. So, she and her dog were strolling down the street. So, since a noun is something that you talk about, every noun, just like the pronouns he, she, it, and them, is going to be in the first, second, or third person. It's going to be in the third person. So circle the 3 words that are in the third person of I, team, you, it, story, and we. So remember, it's all the things being spoken about. So like team would be a noun in the third person. It would be a pronoun in the third person. Story would be a noun in the third person. Now, here's the thing. A shift in person will confuse the viewpoint within a sentence. You begin by talking about one person, but then you end up talking about another, and it gets really weird. So if we circle a pronoun that continues the same viewpoint, if we have as we looked around us, you or we could see that spring was near. So since the pronouns are we and us, we have to match them, same way we did when we were making subject-verb agreement. So which pronoun is in the same person? We. Now granted, you might hear people say as we looked around us, you could see the spring was near. In fact, I know I do that informally as well. But grammatically speaking, formal writing, try not to do that. It would be frowned upon. So the shift in person, saying like, I liked this story because it kept you guessing until the very last page. The sentence, though you might hear it a lot, is technically faulty because I is in the first person, but you is in which person? The second person. So I liked this story because it kept you guessing versus I liked this story because it kept me guessing. So which sentence is correct because the person of the pronouns is consistent throughout the whole sentence? B, right? I, me, both first person. So the shift in person, whether you live in a big city or in the country, nature surrounds us. So this sentence again is faulty because you starts off in the second person, but then us shifts into what? The first person, right? And again, you don't want to shift in person, same way you don't want to shift in your verb tense. So whether you live in a city or the country, nature surrounds you, versus whether you live in a city or the country, nature surrounds us. So which sentence is correct because the pronouns stay consistent? A, right? You matches with you, that is the second person. So a pronoun should agree with its antecedent in number. Remember the antecedent is the noun that the pronoun stands for. So use a singular pronoun to refer to a singular antecedent. Same way you would use a plural pronoun to refer to a plural antecedent. So a shift in number would be like this. You should train a dog before they get too old to learn. So this sentence would be faulty because the plural pronoun they means more than one. But right now it's being used to refer to what singular noun? Dog, right? One dog, but many they? It doesn't match. So you should train a dog before they get too old to learn. You should train a dog before it gets too old to learn. Which sentence would be more correct formally speaking because the number would match? B, right? One dog, one it. Most things are cheaper when you buy them in bulk. Most things are cheaper when you buy it in bulk. So which sentence is correct? Because again, the pronouns match a number. A. Many things, many them. So you should use he or she when a statement applies equally to either sex. So a person should wash his hands before he eats. So what other pronouns could make that above sentence correct? You could say like a person should wash her hands before she eats, right? It would match. So before a person votes, he or she should inform himself or herself about the candidate. Before a person votes, he should inform himself about the candidates. Which sentence is better since we're referring to person? A, right? Because then both genders are, represented. So it'd be wrong to say when a student plays basketball, you must keep in condition. So the sentence is wrong because the pronoun you is disagreeing with the antecedent in number or in person. It would be in person, right? Student would be third person, you would be second. The sentence always reread a letter before you mail them. The sentence would be wrong because them disagrees with the antecedent letter. Is it disagreeing in number or person? In number, because one letter, but again, many them. Alright, now give me a second. I want to change this. How do I want to change it? How do I usually do it? Circle the N when the pronoun disagrees with the antecedent number, and circle the P. I don't want to do that. We are just going to cross out the incorrect pronoun and write in your corrections. So forget this NP nonsense. Every year I always think, I should delete that. And then every year I never do. So thank God I finally am now. Ignore me as I do this. And why did this zoom in? Jeez, go back out. Way too close to the screen. Alright, so let's cross out the incorrect pronoun and write in the correction. A person is expected to keep their appointment. Alright, so what do we gotta do for this one? Well, there is disagreeing with person, right? So there should be what instead? His or her appointment, right? Because we don't necessarily know the gender of the person, right, as we say the sentence. When people were in debt, you used to be put in prison. So what's wrong here? People and you, right? What should you become? he or she. Or even better than that, what could you do? Just they, right? When people are in debt, they used to be put in prison. When a person gets angry, they should count to 10. So we got many they, but one person. So make the they he or she. Can you really judge a person's character by their handwriting? I know this might sound correct, but really it's not, because you and then their and persons, it's all over the place. So what should it be? By his or her handwriting. And once a player takes his hand off a checker, you can't take back the move. So what should that be, since it's specified it's a he? The you should be he can't take back the move. Okay? Give me a second so I can fix this whatnot. Cross out and forget that NP nonsense. That's what the book said, but I don't like it. It's annoying. You can just be happy that I'm not making you do it. And save. Okay, cool. Alright, so supply a pronoun that agrees in number and person with its antecedent. If a person overparks, the police tow blank car away. So since it's referring to person, we would need to say his or her car away. The poster shows a person how blank should put on a life preserver. So again, one individual person means how he or she should put on a life preserver. Why don't you boys help blank to some lunch? So we're talking about the boys, but there's the you, right? So why don't you boys help yourselves to lunch? Some of the customers made it difficult for the clerk by rushing what? Now, we don't necessarily know the gender of the clerk, so we could say by rushing him or rushing her. Don't judge a person entirely by blank clothes. One person means his or her clothes. Once a customer has worn a dress, blank cannot return it. Of course, we don't necessarily know the gender, although most people would probably just assume like she cannot return it, but of course you could do he or she. And the graduate should choose a college that is outstanding in the field of blank choice. One graduate, we don't necessarily know the gender, so we could say his or her choice. Actually, I'm going to edit this because every year I forget to. Cool. Alright, so not too bad, right? Let's try the worksheet.